"Caleb, move it with that rag. You walk like a lame horse." The restaurant owner pointed at him like shooing away a dog. The rag slipped from Caleb's hand and hit the greasy floor. "Same sluggish mess every day. Can someone remind me why this man still works here?" Caleb bent down slowly. His left knee gave out. A customer spoke up, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've seen drunk guys walk better than that." At the very last table, a man saw everything. The next day, 50 soldiers walked into that restaurant, and they didn't come to eat. In Billings, Montana, there was a place called Big Joe's Grill, a large roadside diner with flickering red neon signs and a chalkboard that promised the best pork ribs in town since 1989. Inside, the leather booths were worn down. The coffee machine hissed nonstop, and behind the counter, someone was mopping the floor at 5:45 in the morning. Caleb Morgan, 48 years old, broad shoulders, a face weathered by time. He walked slowly, with a slight lean, his left leg no longer keeping pace with the rest of his body. He never complained, wore the same cap every day, the restaurant's name stitched on crooked, came in early, left late. Caleb lived 19 minutes away, in a small rented room above a second-hand shop, a narrow bed, a modest kitchen, a window, facing the back of a parking lot. He had a little greenhouse with 2 plants, an old TV, and a wardrobe where he kept the few clothes he owned. On the wall, an old photo, 3 men smiling, faces dusty with sand, helmets resting in their laps. On the back of the frame, written in faded blue ink, Ramadi 2006. To most people, Caleb was just a limping janitor, but every morning before leaving home, he pulled a compression sleeve over his left knee, where shrapnel scars still lingered. From a grenade in a time he rarely spoke of, he bent down carefully to lace his boots, closed the door with a long, quiet sigh, and walked to the bus stop like a man who had learned to measure every step. At Big Joe's, Caleb was always the first to arrive. He turned on the heater, swept up the crumbs from the night before, cleaned the bathrooms in silence, mopped the corners no one ever looked at. When a customer dropped something, he'd quietly pick it up with a soft, "Excuse me." He never reacted when people mocked his slowness, or when the manager, a heavy man with a loud voice and shirts always stained with sauce, shouted his name with impatience. Caleb would just lower his head, grab the rags, and return to his task. On the radio at the counter, an old song played, and the smell of burnt coffee slowly filled the air. In that town, on that street, inside that restaurant, no one really knew who Caleb Morgan was. Not yet. It was Friday, 8:40 p.m. The restaurant was nearly full. Caleb was finishing up mopping the floor near the register. He had a mop in one hand and a folded rag in the other. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His knee hurt more than usual. A group of young men sat at the window table, workers from a nearby warehouse. They were laughing loudly. One of them subtly pointed at Caleb with his chin, laughing. In the back of the restaurant, the owner, Richard Vaughn, was arguing with the cook about a wrong order. The air was thick with the smell of grease and pepper. Richard suddenly turned. "Caleb, did you mop that part of the hallway?" Caleb said he hadn't. Vaughn huffed. "Then get moving with that mop. You walk like you've got a truck stuck to your leg." Some people looked over. Others pretended not to hear. No one said a word. Caleb returned to the main area, dragging the mop with effort. Every step made his knee silently protest. Halfway through, he slipped slightly on a damp patch of floor. Almost fell. He managed to steady himself with one hand on the wall, but the wet rag slipped from his hand and landed near one of the guys at the table. The guy looked at him, then at his friends. He made an exaggerated stumbling motion. "I've seen drunk guys walk straighter than that." The others burst out laughing. Caleb picked up the rag without saying a word, went back to mopping. An older couple sitting near. The entrance looked away. At the counter, Richard took a sip of coffee and said loudly, dripping with contempt, "Same scene every day. Can someone remind me why this man still works here?" Uncomfortable silence. Caleb walked past him with his head down. Vaughn watched him go and added in a tone that pretended to be funny. "Oh, right, because I'm such a good man. That's the only reason." The joke hung in the air like grease on the ceiling. No one laughed, but no one said anything either. Caleb set the mop aside for a moment, walked over to the trash can behind the counter, pulled out the full bag, and tied it tightly. Vaughn gave him a look of disdain. Caleb turned slowly. "I've finished the front area. I'll head to the storage room now." "Go," said the manager, grabbing a ticket. "But if you walk past any customers, try walking straight. You're scaring them." Caleb walked toward the back, the trash bag slung over his shoulder. The door creaked shut behind him. At the last table in the dining area, a middle-aged man had been watching everything. Hat low, coffee half full, eyes steady. He'd seen Caleb slip. He'd seen the laughter and the arrogance, and he didn't forget. Caleb finished cleaning the storage room and pulled the metal door shut with force. The sound echoed down the back hallway. Outside, the wind was cold. His night shift was far from over. He sat for a few minutes on a box of cleaning supplies, took off his cap and wiped his forehead with his sleeve. The fluorescent light above flickered slightly, casting broken shadows on the walls. His knee throbbed. He rolled up his pant leg a little and pressed the compression band with his fingers. He did it slowly, like someone who's done it 1,000 times before. Then he put his gloves back on and returned to the dining area. At the counter, a stack of dirty trays was already waiting for him. Caleb washed them one by one, rinsing each carefully. He dried them with a clean towel and stacked them neatly. Behind him, Richard handed off an order to the kitchen. "Move it, Caleb. That bathroom trash won't take itself out." Caleb took off his gloves, grabbed a black trash bag. He walked to the men's restroom. Inside, paper was scattered on the floor and urine stained the corner of the wall. He took a deep breath and started cleaning. Half an hour later, back in the dining area, a glass fell to the floor. It shattered with a sharp crack. The sound echoed between the silverware and the muffled conversations. Caleb walked carefully over to the table where an elderly couple was sitting. "I didn't mean to, sir. I'm so sorry," the woman said, avoiding eye contact. Caleb just nodded. He crouched down slowly. His knee popped. His leg froze for a second. He picked up the shards with a folded napkin, gathered the larger pieces, placed everything on a tray. The woman tried to hand him a $5 bill. "It's for the extra trouble," she said. Caleb didn't take it, but thanked her. He went back to the sink and continued washing dishes. Later, at the end of the shift, Richard crossed paths with him in the hallway by the kitchen. "Did you see the state of the women's restroom?" Caleb nodded. "I already cleaned it." "You did a poor job," Vaughn snapped, tossing a towel onto a dirty sink. "Looks like you clean with your feet. You should be thanking me for still showing up." It was just past midnight when Caleb put on his coat to leave. Outside, the wind cut sharp. His fingertips trembled. His knee barely bent. The bus stop was 4 blocks away. He started walking, slowly. In the small rented room, he sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. He stayed like that for a while. On the shelf, a small radio played at low volume. He closed his eyes and tried to rest. Another day was coming, Saturday morning. The sky was clear, but the wind was still bitter. Big Joe's opened at 8 a.m. By 11, the parking lot was full. Richard Vaughn showed up late, as usual. He had a half-empty cup of coffee and a pack of bacon tucked under his arm. He frowned at the sight of all the cars. "What the hell?" he muttered. It wasn't the usual Saturday crowd. Many cars had battalion stickers, small flags on antennas. Caleb was already there. He was mopping the reception floor. Mop leaned against the door. When the first man walked in, Caleb stopped. The man wore a military uniform. Then 2 more followed, then 5. Behind the counter, Richard's eyes widened. "Can someone tell me what's going on?" 10 more people entered, 2 women among them, all in uniform, some bearing scars on their bodies, and the weight of justice in their hearts. They weren't there to eat. By noon, the restaurant was packed. Over 50 soldiers and family members filled the place. The usual noise died down. Even the regulars stopped talking. In the middle of the restaurant, one of the soldiers stepped forward. He turned to the counter, looked at Caleb, who was still standing with the mop in hand. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady. "That man right there." He pointed calmly. "He's the reason I'm alive today. Pulled me from a burning vehicle. And saved me, along with 8 others, under enemy fire." The restaurant fell silent. Richard scratched his head. "What's this all about?" he asked one of the men nearby. The man ignored him. Many began walking toward Caleb. Some shook his hand, others hugged him. Several simply said, "Thank you." One man, bald, muscular, with a tattoo on his neck, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man is Caleb Morgan. He served with us in one of the most dangerous regions of the Iraq War. In August of 2006, he ran 200 meters under crossfire to rescue 2 soldiers trapped inside a burning Humvee. On that mission, even after being wounded by grenade shrapnel, he saved some of us standing here today. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for heroism in combat. We later heard he disappeared after the war. No one knew where he'd gone. But today, we found him." A woman approached. She held a child's hand. She looked at him and said, "My husband came home because of you. I just wanted you to know." Caleb nodded slightly. The man who had been watching Caleb the night before stepped forward. "You could have died with us that day," Caleb replied. "I just wanted you all to make it home alive." The man nodded. "Well, we did. And today, we're here for you." The following week, business at Big Joe's doubled. People from nearby towns started showing up. Some came out of curiosity, others out of respect. Inside the restaurant, the work stayed the same. But something had changed. Customers now greeted Caleb by name. "Good morning, Mr. Morgan. Thank you for what you did." Caleb would nod in response. Sometimes he'd say, "Good morning." That Friday night, a group of young men walked in. The same group that had laughed at him the week before. They fell silent when they saw him. No mocking, no pointing. As they left, one of them walked up to the counter. He left a folded tip for Caleb next to the coffee. Richard pulled Caleb aside, looking a bit embarrassed. "I'm sorry for the way I talked to you. If you ever need anything, just ask. If you stay here with me, I'll raise your salary. You'll move up here in my restaurant." In need, Caleb thanked him and accepted the offer. Richard had a small plaque made. Simple and discreet. Black background, white letters hanging on the wall near the back door. Employee of the Month, Caleb Morgan. Big Joe's never became a tourist attraction. It never made national news. But it earned something far more lasting: respect. Caleb kept mopping floors, cleaning tables, scrubbing. But now, every time he passed by, people recognized him, they greeted him. Now everyone knew who that man was, and through him, respect for forgotten heroes began to return. If you believe Caleb deserved that honor, or even more, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story, especially for you.